In this EliteWorks video, we're going to be going over widgets and how to add widgets to your website. Now, what are widgets? Widgets are content and buttons and text, essentially, that's going to make up your site outside of the section, rows, and columns. Now, in the previous video, we did go over section, rows, and columns, and we're going to pick up from that point. If you haven't watched the previous video, then I would recommend going back to the previous video before watching this one. Now, from the previous video, we've got our section and our row and our column. Now, we know that the depth goes from section to row to column, and then the last piece of that depth is going to be the widget itself. Now, in order to drag a widget out onto my page, I'm going to click on the widget menu, and then I'm going to select the different types of widgets that I want to drag out. So if I want to drag out some text, I can go to text, and then I can drag out my basic text widget. Now, every single widget within the EliteWorks platform and the architect is pixel by pixel dragging and drop. So I can move it literally to any different or any place on my page, and that's where it will be when I publish my site to go live. Now, with the text widget, for example, if I want to edit the widget, I simply double click, and then I can type into it just like I would in a Word program or a text editor. But other widgets don't necessarily work the same way that text does. So let's say I've got my text, but I also want to add a button. So I can go to widgets, and if I drag my button out, okay, now I've got my button, and I can move this button anywhere I want. Now, in order to stylize or look at the different menus that are available for widgets, now some of them are slightly different depending on the complexity of the widget, but all of which will have a themes. So if I click on themes, I can look at global themes for buttons or themes that I have individually created. Then you're going to have styles. Now, styles is where you're going to change the look and behavior of the button. And then settings is where you're going to change what it says or where it links to. So if we click on styles, I'm going to get the styles theme. Now, every single widget's going to start with the different aspect of the widget that you can update. So the button has the button container and button inner text. So it only has two pieces to that. So if I go to container, and then it's going to give me the different styles that I can change for the container. Now, within this styles menu, on my left hand side, I've got the standard styles. So that's how the widget looks when it's just sitting there on the page. And then we've got hover styles. Now, hover styles is what it does if you put the mouse over it. Okay, so if I go ahead and change the background to, let's say, a black, but then I change the hover, let's make the hover color a red. And I'm going to click done. Now, I can move this wherever I want. Now, if I want to view in the architect without having to go to a live page, I can simply double click on the widget, and it now activates the hover style. So now you can see as I move my mouse over the button, it's changing colors. Okay? Now you can set these up for all of the different pieces to each individual widget. So let's do another widget, and let's make one that's a little bit more complex. So if I go to section, let's add in a new section. Now let me put in a like an image gallery widget. So if we go to media, and I've got image gallery, and I drag that out. Now, the image gallery widget is a little bit more complex because we're going to be changing multiple pieces to how the widget works. So, of course, I've still got my themes, my styles, and my settings. If I click on settings, you're going to see it's going to give me each of my individual images that I have. Now, I can reorder those by dragging them around. Okay. I can edit each one of these individually, and I can change the image, and then I can add my individualized header text, image title, and my SEO tags. And then I can also apply the link of where I want that particular image to go. So if I want this to link to my page about cats, I can click on change link and I can say where I want it to go within my website. And then I've got the layout settings. So if I go to layout settings, now images per row, this is going to determine on a large screen, so desktop, if we're in the desktop side, how many images we want to show. Okay. Now I'm not going to get too in depth into just the image gallery widget because we'll work on getting some training videos that are built just around this specifically, and you can take a look at those. But this is what your settings is going to give you for something that's a little bit more complex of a widget that's got a little bit more moving parts, so to speak. Now if we go back to the styles, now you're going to notice, see how we've got more areas that we can edit. So we've got the container, which contains all of them, right? If I click on that, I can edit, or I can go back. And then I've got like my title, so if I want to edit title, or my image background, I can go to the image background. Now from here, if I want to edit one of those different aspects of the widget, I can simply click on the image and it'll give me a drop down that I can scroll through, or I can just simply click the back button and take me back to where I want to be. Now the last thing when it comes to widgets is what is called freeform versus responsive. So if I click on this button, or let's do the text. If I click on the text, and notice how I can move it pixel by pixel wherever I want. Now if I want to make this a responsive widget, so as the screen shrinks it adjusts the content, you'll typically do this with your text. We're going to click on the button that says responsive. Now as I do that, you're going to notice it gives a full dedicated left to right space for that widget. So as the screen shrinks, the text within inside it dedicates that space to it. Okay. Now with the button widget, for example, though, if I go to responsive, see how it puts the button all the way across. So a button widget is a good example of one that we don't utilize responsive for. You're going to utilize freeform, and you're going to move it to correspond to where you want your users to click. Now that's a quick basic overview of the widgets. If we go back into the widget menu, you can search for them. So if I want to search, let's say contact form, it's going to pull up my contact form. If I want to search product, it's going to pull up everything that has to do with product. Should make it pretty easy, and then it just gets just comes to getting used to how the widgets kind of work and what you can do with them. And there are different tutorials that are associated with each individualized widget, and we work on getting those out every day. So that's a basic overview of widgets. Though that's the last building piece to creating your website. Once you understand that, you can really start getting into making them work how you want. If you have any questions on widgets, of course, as always, you can reach out to our support group, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks.